OK, let's return now to Northern Ireland. We know that the Prime Minister is there today trying to get the Northern Ireland Assembly back up and running again. Sir Iain Duncan Smith, of course, former leader of the Conservative Party, Conservative MP, joins me down the line. Iain, thank you very much, as always, for joining us here on GBNews. First of all, do you agree with the Prime Minister's strategy, which seems out of line, if you like, with the DUP, which is very much to change the protocol rather than to scrap it altogether?
Well, these are words, so let's have a look. What is the protocol? The protocol is an agreement between the EU and the UK government as to how Northern Ireland can be sustained, and more importantly, how you can sustain the Good Friday Agreement, which has been the critical component of keeping peace and allowing Northern Ireland to move forward. So that's the name. The question is what's in it? And the reality right now is the protocol, as agreed, is fundamentally flawed. But something that goes missing almost every time is that within the protocol as it exists at the moment, there are two very critical clauses. Clause 13, subparagraph 8 is very clear. It says that the protocol can be changed in whole or in part if both parties agree to do that. And the second one, of course, is Article 16, where there are diversions of trade and also social and economic problems that exist. All of those are in place now. There are real issues about trade imbalances and problems about people shifting their trade to other areas, including the south of Ireland. And also the other point is that there is an alternative on the table, which is what this bill will do, which is to change the protocol.
But isn't it the problem in many ways, and this is kind of slightly the catch-22, is in the end that when Brexit was going to happen, one side or the other weren't going to be happy, because obviously if there was going to be, and we know the whole point of Brexit was about essentially having more control ourselves. And so those checks, if they were on the island of Ireland, nationalists would have been furious. Now they're in the Irish Sea, unionists are furious. And in the end, you know, the protocol is a compromise, and it's a compromise that, frankly, is supported by the majority of politicians and indeed the public in Northern Ireland, because they see it as a deal that, OK, not perfect, but fundamentally is better than the alternative.
Well, that's actually not altogether true. It's polling shows that the majority of the public in Northern Ireland do not like the protocol because it's caused real restrictions on them in trade terms. And also, it's important, what was the whole purpose of the protocol? It was to support the Good Friday Agreement. That was the idea, that we would keep the Good Friday Agreement, and therefore that would mean that Northern Ireland remains settled. What it has managed to do, because of the peculiar interpretation taken by the EU over everything, the reality is now that the Good Friday Agreement is under threat. The unionists talk quite clearly and quite rightly about the issue of consent, which is critical to the Good Friday Agreement, that no policy, no article should be brought forward without the consent of both communities. And this is clearly not the case here. And that is the problem right now. It's causing damage, it's causing division, and it's causing economic harm to Northern Ireland. And remember, the UK, rather Northern Ireland, remains an integral part of the United Kingdom. But peculiarly, the EU has insisted on all measures being adopted from the EU and adjudicated by the Court of Justice, which is peculiar, and that all that process needs to be changed dramatically.
No, I get that, but again, you'd know what nationalists would turn around and say about that, about consent, is that, and Northern Ireland is a particularly unique part of the UK, is that there was no consent for Brexit. That obviously nationalists didn't agree with Brexit, and in fact the majority of people in Northern Ireland didn't agree with it. So there's a feeling, isn't there, from one side that consent is used with a protocol, but it was never used with why the protocol was needed in the first place.
No. This is very different, because the Brexit was a pan-United Kingdom vote all over the United Kingdom about whether people wish to stay in the EU or to plough a different course. And the majority of the United Kingdom, which includes Northern Ireland, actually voted to leave. So that isn't a process that requires consent, because consent was granted on the basis that everybody took part in that process as a member of the United Kingdom. The issue around the protocol is, as the UK left the EU, it was how to make sure that the Good Friday Agreement, this is what the EU and the Americans said, at all costs we must protect the Good Friday Agreement. This protocol actually damages the Good Friday Agreement quite significantly, as it's dividing communities in a way that hasn't happened for some considerable time. So, it's important to recognize that those who believe in the Union, which is the majority, the later poll shows the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland still wish to remain in the United Kingdom. So on that basis, what we have to do is come up with something that finds its balance in this. And this is not the protocol as it exists today, because it doesn't have that balance. It requires huge checks. Bear in mind that the cross-border trade is 0.2% of all the trade, and yet it has more checks now than any other part of the EU. It's ridiculous, because the idea of smuggling through Ireland is an absurdity, because the cost would be so high. It's far more onerous than east-west trade that comes between Ireland and the UK, which is almost less than a quarter of the time it takes to clear lorries. So all of this is ridiculous and needs to be changed.
Can I just ask you very quickly and very finally, do you think, though, at the very least, because this is what the Prime Minister seemed to be suggesting today in his column in the Belfast Telegraph, that ultimately the protocol should be de-linked or decoupled from the negotiations or the need for restoration of government in Northern Ireland? Because if the election showed anything 2 weeks ago, is that most people want to see the Assembly up and running again.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's what he would like, and that's what most people would like. But I don't think it's going to happen, because the DUP has made it very clear that there is a problem here, and they can't go back into cooperation in government in Northern Ireland until this is changed. So, in a sense, the UK government's got to get off its backside and get on with it to make these changes, and either agree with the EU to do that, or to do them unilaterally on our side of the border. The only part of this debate that is threatening a hard border is the EU. It's not the UK. The UK has always said that border will remain open for transport and goods, etc. There's not going to be checks on that border, no matter what, from our side of the fence. It's only the EU that threatens that, which tells you all you need to know about their real desire.
OK, Iain Duncan Smith, as always, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on GB News.